I would like to have an approval of the agenda. Is there any modification, Carla, Josh, anyone, to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. And that passes. And so the agenda is approved, and then we'll have an approval of the minutes. Any modifications to the minutes from last time that we met? No? I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting after reading them.
Okay, thank you. And now there's no administrative items, but we will have a legislative session. And the first item on the agenda is Perry Sharma Capital requests an amendment to the official zone map from NC Neighborhood Commercial to HC Highway Commercial for the property located at northwest corner of Wallace Drive and 1600 South. So, Carla,
Oh, hi.
You're up.
Okay, here I am. All right, so this is the subject property. You see 1600 South, so this is where the Sunpro development is coming in, and you've got the new interchange. So it is this parcel right here, just to the south of Kelvin Grove Park. So I was not here in 2003, but Laura Thompson, our senior planner, gave me a little background. As part of the general overhaul that was done in 2003, this parcel was zoned neighborhood commercial. The area was very different looking at that time. The substation was not in existence. Very few of these homes were in existence. And neighborhood commercial fit at that time. And there's also not any set plans for the interchange coming in as far as any specific timeline or even funding. It was just, it was on a long-range plan, and that was about it. Only phase one of the Kelvin Grove subdivision had been built, and like I said, the neighborhood commercial just fit at that time. The property owner, represented by Lance Richards and Tim Simonson, wanted to have requested the rezone based upon the new zoning of HC is much more compatible in this area now than it would have been in the past, and will allow for greater uses as they move forward. We have always had in mind that we would make sure that these rezones were taken to the Development Review Committee. So if there were any concerns from the various departments on infrastructure and other services provided, they would be able to comment then. They reviewed this. There was no concerns from anyone there, and felt that HC made sense. And so that is what we are looking at right now. As you can see, the NC zone is a little island between the light industrial manufacturing areas. Even the second phase of the Dry Creek sub is within the neighborhood commercial zone, which is kind of funny. The Kelvin Grove Park will serve as a good buffer from the more intense uses in the HC than in the NC, and provides that a natural break without having to do a lot of mitigation for the residential in the area. So based upon the information that and the discussions that we've had with the representatives of the property owner and internal, the city is in favor of this. It recommends that we move ahead with this rezone. So, any questions? Oh, crap, there we go, sorry. That's like break it.
More for people that are here, can you explain the difference in terms of what neighborhood commercial is versus highway commercial?
Yeah, so neighborhood commercial is those types of uses that would be less intense, would be the things that you would be stopping by for maybe on a daily basis, be able to walk to, not a big draw outside of the close proximity of the businesses. Highway commercial, a little bit more intense. The height and of the buildings is also a little is higher, and some things that are more regional draw. You may have, people coming from other parts of the community. They're not necessarily within walking distance, or they may see it as a specific designation rather than the neighborhood commercial.
Thank you.
You bet. I hope that clarifies.
Can you give an example of more intense?
What was that?
Can you give an example of more intense?
So you could have it's like a Walmart or the Smith. Those are more the highway commercial. You could also have automotive dealerships. You could also have automotive repair. So just kind of everything that you wouldn't necessarily be walking to. A lot of the area around, I'm trying to think. Josh, you gotta help me because I'm really.
Perhaps you could pull up the.
Do you want me to just pull up the land use matrix? I can do that. That would make sense.
While you're pulling that up, how many acres is that, Josh?
Yeah. Say that again.
How many acres is that?
4.6.
Yes. Just.
It may be also useful to point out the change in immediate context of that property.
Yeah.
You can go out there and see it now, but previous to this, the 1600 South project, it had frontage along a road that was on the ground. It no longer has frontage on a road that is on the ground, except for the Wallace Lane on the east. It essentially butts up against the side, the MSE wall, the block wall on the side of the overpass now. So it changed the development potential in that it no longer has a long frontage that could be divided and accessed. There's really only one access now, and it's from the east. So those are some of the other reasons the owner and their real estate team was looking to change the zone. But Carla can go through that. It's really primarily in the retail and industrial and auto-related uses that there's the primary difference. You can.
Yeah. So you'll see here, neighborhood commercial is the NC.
You zoom in on that a little.
I'm trying. Yes, I can. Let's see. So I assume that because I can see it,
On that top right, actually, in the window, if it lets you do it.
or I can just do it
That
like.
text size, or you can do it that way.
Yeah. So NC and HC zoning, you'll see that much of the NC, like I said, very neighborhood-centric, daycares, preschools, and these would also be allowed in the HC, but it's when you get down here into the auto vehicle-related ones where you see more of the permitted uses, heavy equipment sales, those types of things. There's also some design guidelines that are different as far as the way buildings are sited on the property in the NC that help maintain the walkability of a neighborhood, whereas those design standards are not there for the highway commercial. You also see, once again, more of the reception centers, repair services, any of the retail, larger retail outlets that would not be part of neighborhood commercial except as conditional uses. So that is a little bit more of when we talk about the intensity of uses, that's what we're looking at. Okay?
So more like what you would find on like a frontage road.
Yes, so let me do this here. Do we have our EMAP here? We do not, okay. Oh, okay, that's new. Okay, I guess we don't have access to our EMAP from here.
Try the other one.
This one? So I can't pull up the zoning, but you do see the HC in, like I said, around highways, some of the area along 2000 West, and on the frontage roads, as you said, are the HC zoning. Okay. Any questions?
It looks like there was already analysis done by the Development Review Committee.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our Development Review Committee has always been there to look over specific applications and developments. But one thing that we have, as we've worked with administration and various departments, that rezones should also be coming before the DRC, so that if various departments are aware of something going on with a property that I may not know or be fully aware of, that they can say, hey, there's a concern with this, or this is part of our future plan, those types of things. And so we did that with the Development Review Committee. Everyone felt that this was a rezone that made sense. There was nothing that raised any red flags or any concerns, and nothing that couldn't be addressed when a development came in and made an application.
In general, this level of review was just looking at the uses or the character development in the proposed zone and determining if there were any concerns with the planning or previous planning of utilities, roads, or any of the other capital facilities that would raise a concern with changing the zone here. The further technical review of a specific development application, a site plan, and a building permit would be done later when those things are applied for. Right now, we're just looking at a change in the zone map.
Thank you.
All right. And as the general plan that we currently have in place right now simply just lists this area as commercial. Both the neighborhood commercial and the highway commercial are consistent with that use in the general plan. So there was not any real heartache about having to, looking at this rezone for that, since it's still a commercial use.
So there's not access from the freeway. Is that what it's saying with the frontage?
No,
Like-
so the new road that they're doing on 1600,
Mhm,
it
yeah.
chicanes down, and that's actually lifted. It's raised.
Oh. Wait,
It butts up against the new overpass, and
So-
the former road is being could be dedicated back to transferred back to the property because it doesn't go anywhere. And so the only accessible frontage the building would have on a public street would be on Wallace Drive.
okay.
You'd have to come out onto Wallace and then go to the intersection of Wallace and 1600 South to get onto 1600 South.
So if you get off the freeway at 1600 South, you'd have to turn on Wallace.
You'd have to
and
turn
then
left on Wallace, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was necessitated by the 1600 South project. And it's actually a condition that happens a couple times up and down the corridor, where direct access to 1600 South has been removed and the access is now on a side road.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for me?
Yeah. If the petitioner's here and they'd like to speak, you can come up.
My name is Tim Simonson. I'm from Colliers, the brokerage. We represent the Sharma family on this property. And I want to say thanks to you as a commission for taking your time to listen to us tonight and consider this. We appreciate the staff that the several meetings that we've had and their input that we've tried to accommodate. And we think this makes a lot of sense to make this change just because the uses have changed because of the roadway changes. And we, are not going to get a little strip center on a daily basis because of the lack of frontage, but we have some great quasi-retail type uses that have worked with us, a plumbing supply store, a electrical supply store. We have a gentleman that's here tonight that has a nice, beautiful climbing gym, which we think he's got a letter of intent with us that he'd love to add to the community, which I think would be a great use and gathering spot for the community as well. The overpass has created, it's great for the residents for sure, and it's much better and to take some of that pressure off of the other streets, but it where the overpass comes down, it just finally levels out right at Wallace Drive. It makes this a difficult parcel for regular development. So we've also had our wetland study done, and the wetlands that are there are non-jurisdictional, so the Corps of Engineers said that can be remediated really easily. And so we've spent a lot of money to get to this point, and I think we've, with Josh and Carla's input, we've really, I think, have examined all the possibilities and come up with what we think is just a great opportunity to improve the city. And with the railroad tracks on the west, the park on the north, the substation on the east, we're kind of isolated right there. We're not bothering any residential. And so I think it's got plenty of buffers around it. We're not going to do any industrial or even ask for that type of use because of all the industrial already that exists west of the tracks. So we just love this opportunity to improve the city. So there any other questions that you may have for me that I can?
No,
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much. As this is a legislative item, we will open a public hearing, and if you could come to the front and try to keep it to 3 minutes or so, and go ahead. Yes. I don't know. She doesn't need to do their address anymore, but their name.
Seeing that no one is approaching for public comment, I'd vote a motion to close the public hearing.
Who's the second? A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Alrighty. Discussion amongst the commissioner?
Makes perfect sense.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have a question when he was talking. Carla, do we know what the left turn lane is going to look like from 1600 onto Wallace?
Josh, you have that?
The applicants.
I don't have those
A few more pages.
plan, but
I'm so
oh,
sorry.
They included a clip that's from the UDOT plan, I think.
Yeah,
It
there
shows
is.
that left turn lane. It's pretty long.
Oh, that where the yellow
Yep.
is. Oh, okay. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind.
It will.
I didn't realize that that's what the left lane was like. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I feel like with minimum frontage, like a neighborhood commercial would be really hard to get to work,
Yeah.
especially right next to 1600, which is going to effectively become highway anyways.
Yeah.
So
There's other discussion? Entertain a motion?
Okay, I move to recommend approval of the amendment of the official zone map from NC Neighborhood Commercial to Highway Commercial for the property located at the northwest corner of Wallace Drive and 1600 South Parcel 260470195.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? All right, so we will recommend that for approval. And then transportation, is that what we're doing next?
Let's just say thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I will promise that this is the last master plan or impact fee you will see this year. So
Oh, it's
I
my-
can only promise this year, but
I won't have another one.
I know you're shedding a tear. I can tell. But Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for your time. Thank you for your abundance of time and listening. We've been instructed to keep IFAs up to date with inflationary increases. Some of these we've done full-blown master plan teardowns, and you will see next year a full from the bottom. We're going to scale this down to the bones and build it back up. We're in the process right now, but currently what you see before you is just the an inflationary increase for the impact fee facility or impact fee analysis for transportation. So, annual IFA updates, like I said, we're there to keep up with inflation, adjust any project costs that we can see, level out increases, try to keep them gradual instead of these huge increases. It allows the home builders to plan better for impact fees if we're just doing small increases as we go. We can verify growth and verify our data on an annual basis, so we're keeping an eye on that annually. Level of service. For transportation, it's a little less, it's not so much capacity or quantity. You're going to start looking at number of trips on a road. And level of service for roadways are measured in an A to F scale. A being the best, F being the worst. So the most traffic congestion on F, A being the least amount of traffic congestion. The level of service we've identified and kind of is nationally endorsed is level of service D or better. We try to be just above failing for the peak hour time frame or any time frame through there, but typically it's the peak hour, and if we can keep ourselves just above absolute gridlock, that's kind of what we're shooting for. You can see for an urban arterial over here on the left and then a collector on the right, 3-lane or 5-lane arterial, you're pushing 32,000 trips in a day. A collector, level of service D, 3-lane is 13,000, 5-lane 26, almost 27,000. So what we look at during this growth time period, we look at the 10-year and we try to anticipate how many additional trips are we going to see on our roadways. So we're specifically looking at PM peak hour trips. In this, the impact fee facilities plan, after analysis in the next 10 years, we're looking at just shy of 8,000 additional trips looking at the time period between 2026 and 2036. So we've identified how much we're going to grow, not population. We're just looking at vehicular trips. Then we have to take into account any roadways that have been built that now have excess capacity. If we've paid for them, the impact fees can pay us back for those. And they pay back at that year's construction value. Whatever we paid for it, they pay back. So from the standpoint, anything that has been pre-built, the developers and people coming in are getting a pretty good deal compared to prices now. We have some capacity in 1200 West, 9th South, as you go down through there, percent attributable to new development and how much we can collect and pay ourselves back. is shown there, and that's factored into the impact fee. So this is the project map. It kind of shows what we're anticipating in the next 10 years as projects. And you can see down here that 1600 South area, this north and south of that are new ones that have kind of popped up. That's our a focus area of growth down there. Kind of the build it and they will come. You build a 5-lane road and a new interchange, people are going to come down that road. And then we've got some development up in the northeast or northwest quadrant, and then in and around anticipated to fill in some of the gaps of along the 4 South corridor. Roadway projects, total Springville city cost is about $33 million, and we feel we can, there's about $7 million of that attributable to eligible for impact fee. The good thing with roads is you can't build half a pipe and still have water flow through it. You can do a partial road. That's kind of the approach we've taken on 1200 West. We've done pioneering roads. At least eventually it's going to be 2 lanes each direction, but we build the first 2 lanes and run 1 lane each direction to at least pioneer the corridor, get things going. That's kind of the stance we've taken, and then allow development to finish up the other half. Intersections are rated a little different. That you look at level of service based on delay. How long are you stuck waiting to be able to make a turn or enter that adjacent roadway? And so we have intersection improvements primarily are going to be funded through the impact fee. You can see total eligible Springville total is about 20 million, and about 20 million is impact fee eligible. So we've looked at that, and that's going to be railroad crossings, roundabouts that are very difficult to assign to one particular development because they're being loaded from 4 different directions. So the approach is really to take some of these major intersection enhancements and collectively apply them to growth for the most part. Down here on 1600 South, all of those looks like a lot of improvements, but they're going to be UDOT as part of that 1600 South improvement there. So getting down to the nuts and bolts of things with the buy-in cost, the new construction costs, consultant fees, and any fund balance we had in as credits, we get to a PM peak hour trip impact fee is $3,210.19. So what does that mean? It says any PM peak trip, we're going to charge that, but how do we assess what a trip is? We start looking to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the ITE Trip Generation Manual. They've done exhaustive studies on different land uses and are able to assign a value. How much is a gas station going to generate traffic or generate trips? A gas station with a convenience store, a little bit more. Let's say hypothetically a large convenience store with 100 gas pumps. How many is that going to generate? It's kind of off the charts. That's new uncharted territory, but it is a significant amount of trips that one particular land use could generate. So the current transportation impact fee is $31.09. So we've roughly gone up about $100 in the range. I think it's roughly 3% increase there, right in line with inflationary increases there. So they go through and assign a category, different land use. They give you the units. We're going to assess that on per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And then they give this IT trip. One designation, the IT trip count, the Trip Generation Manual, counts trips a little different than our model does. They do, the minute you leave the driveway is 1 trip, the minute you get to where you're going is a 2nd trip. Whereas our model counts as you leave the driveway, go to where you're going, get there, it's 1 trip. So all we do to adjust the IT trip is cut them in half. We just basically divide by 2. So, for example, single family detached housing. Let me zoom in on that. The IT trip tells us that's roughly equivalent 1. So that's what we base a lot of our information on, is just a single family dwelling. It's 0.94 IT trips. We cut that in half. It's 0.47. So you take that 0.47, multiply it by your 3210, and you get $1,508. And that's the impact fee for a single family home. So they go through and assign all those different land uses, high schools, churches, and then they give the IT trip, which is a federally recognized manual and standard. We adjust them to the adjusted trips and then multiply it by the PM peak value we assessed. And so all of those, the different land uses can be analyzed and assigned an impact fee. So let's just compare ourselves again to in Utah County. Where do we stand? For a single family home, it's currently $1,462. We're proposed is $1,509. Again, with that adjustment, PM peak, it was about $100 difference. Now we're about $50 difference there. Is an increase of 3.2%. And you can see the proposed, basically all we did is stayed about in the same location. We're below the county average, and we're about, I think, 6th out of 17, somewhere in that range. This is, again, you've seen this before, but this is just looking at us collectively. Total impact fee is about $18,000. County average is just shy of $18,000. We put ourselves collectively and looking countywide, we're 9 out of 20. So we're right there in the middle. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. We are high in some areas, and we're definitely low in others, and it balances out. And again, that's looking, basing all apples to apples comparison on a 10,000 square foot single family home, or no, a 4,000 square foot single family home on a 10,000 square foot lot. Any questions?
I did have one question.
Yes.
So I noticed on your map where you're showing your proposed projects, I guess this is more just a general thought. Yeah, there we go. So the intersection projects that you're listing, I'm just curious if there was any discussion in terms of an additional pedestrian crossing on Main Street near 400 South, knowing that the only current ones that we have are at the lights, but then there's also like over by Pier 49, there's a crosswalk there that's not metered. Like, I'm curious if there was any additional conversation in terms of how to get across Main Street.
No, there wasn't as part of this discussion, but as part of the incorporate. When we're breaking this down, we're trying to incorporate the newly approved or recently approved active transportation plan into this update. The difficult one there is that is UDOT controlled.
Yeah.
So we can propose it, but we can't necessarily enforce our will on that. And they have, if you see in Spanish Fork, they actually went through and removed most of the unsignalized crossings on their main street.
Yeah.
We fought hard to keep some of those, worked very, very well with them to get this crossing out here with the rapid flashing beacons.
Yeah.
Have not attempted anything at that second or a third down there, well, first. Sorry. But yes, I have not looked at that, but with the Allen's block and other things, we could entertain something like that and at least start the discussions with UDOT.
Yeah, I guess it would just more just, I guess, as conversations continue, especially with what potentially will be proposed at 4th and Main, and like just if that's just still an option, I think that we should probably entertain that.
Okay, it's something we can definitely discuss.
While we're looking at that map, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Otherwise we're doing transportation, but coming up from the new high school up onto 400 South,
Yes.
was there ever going to be a light there, or how is that going to work with students coming out of that area?
So there is a light. We've actually received bids on that. It will be installed. So it's roughly about 1100 east and 4 south. It is not shown in here because, go ahead.
So it's east of the present roundabout. I'm talking about going down towards Reams, like when the students come up out of
Yes.
high school
Yeah.
to, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the roundabout is
Okay.
here, it's actually west
okay.
of that. It's that new road that comes down to the high school, that is going to have a signal.
But it's not on here.
It is not, because it is funded, in one where it's a new one, so it hasn't necessarily been analyzed as an impact fee or a problem intersection, but we are adding it as part of that high school thing. So yeah, we could add that to that map.
There is one in that area where we just did the reconstruction that we thought about a roundabout, or someone talked about a roundabout, and then it changed.
Yeah, 620 and
Yeah, right next to 15.
So that will be a light as well. Or-
it has been plumbed, if you will. There's conduit on all four legs. We're waiting. It has to be warranted to do a signal, and we can't. It wouldn't be right to do the warrant until this new road we're discussing is opened up, and we see what the new traffic patterns are going to be like.
I just wondered, because I see it on that one, but I don't see it on the other one I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it shows it as a signal, but it's a potential one, and we had talked of it, we've made preparations, but it definitely has to be warranted, and we're not sure how that's going. That will be part of the update when the school opens. We'll run the new model and see what those traffic conditions look like.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I believe so. Thank you very much.
I don't know if there was a motion. There's one if needs
We
be.
have to do a public hearing.
Okay.
Not yet.
So another legislative item. So if you have any comments, if you'd like to come through, come up and state your name and let us know what you think.
Seeing no one come forward, I move we close the public hearing.
Do you have a motion
I'll second it.
in a second? All in favor? Aye. Discussion?
I appreciate that you explained the traffic pattern analysis and that methodology,
Yeah.
and how like what you're doing differs from the federally recognized traffic patterns. Because I was recently looking at that, and it is confusing how they count a trip.
Yeah, it just comes down to the way they count it, and yeah, our model just happens to be a point A to point B
Yeah.
as a single trip, so.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say again, thank you. I recognize the hard work we all do that goes into this and the meetings that you have with all of your people, and thank you.
I can honestly say when we get to this point, it is a sigh of relief.
We recognize your work.
Motion?
Any other discussion? Trying to flip to the motion page.
Yeah, I didn't see
Where
it.
is the
I don't think there's I missed it.
I didn't see it. All right. All right, well, I move that the planning commission, I move that we recommend that to the city council the approval and adoption of the transportation impact fee facility plan and the impact fee analysis as presented. In addition, or should we separate these into two separate motions? What?
Not-
Same item? Okay. In addition, I recommend to the city council to adopt the maximum allowable impact fee as calculated in the IFA in accordance with the requirements of the Utah Impact Fees Act.
We have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we will be recommending that to the city council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And for the station plan, will that be you, Josh?
Yeah.
There we go. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I'm going to go back through the background information we've discussed previously on this and then talk about the changes we've made to the plan and proposed to you since our last discussion. So in the station area, the existing planning resides within the Westfields Community Plan and the Westfields Overlay Zone. That Westfields Community Plan was done in 2002 at the time that these 1,300 acres of the Westfields was annexed into the city. It also includes the Village Center Overlay, which essentially coincides with that area labeled Community Core. It anticipated a mix of commercial, office, and residential units with an intermodal transit center that was anticipated at that point to include commuter rail, commuter parking, as well as local bus connector services with traditional mixed-use buildings similar to what you would see in downtown or traditional village or town centers. In the Westfields Community Plan, one of the goals is for the community core to create a community that includes a core surrounded by residential neighborhoods with a mix of housing types, open space, parks, and public buildings. Those objectives were to create a community core for the Westfields by creating a transit-oriented mixed-use community core zone, as well as a neighborhood commercial zone for the area east of 1200 West that would encourage shopping, housing, and employment in close proximity to each other and create a walkable community at the center of the Westfields community. So this is that future land use plan from the Westfields Community Plan. You can see that it indicates transit center, adjacent to the tracks, mixed use, and then higher density residential and commercial around that area. So the station area plan is simply a plan for the land surrounding a fixed guideway transit station. These include commuter rail, light rail, in Utah we call them front runner and tracks, and then BRT or bus rapid transit facilities, such as the BRT in Provo. It is intended to accommodate housing, business, industry, transportation, not just the transit transportation, but also provide a setting for civic and public life where neighbors and residents can access all the things they need for daily living, just as was stated in that community plan from 2002. This is the area, the planning area, and a quick summary of House Bill 462, which was the bill that established the requirement for cities to undertake the station area planning program to increase the available affordability of housing, promote sustainable environmental conditions, enhance access to opportunities, which is typically viewed as employment, increasing transportation choices and connections. The plan needs to be adopted by Springville City and then considered and adopted by the Mountain Land Association of Governments, which is our metropolitan planning organization. Some of the guiding questions as we undertook this plan is how do we design for a constituency that doesn't live there yet? So we may see some people move from the adjoining neighborhood, but a lot of these people may be new to this community. And how do we create a sustainable retail and service and daily needs core without competing with other Springville retail cores like downtown? And how do we make it feel like Springville, especially in an area that is currently an agricultural field? So the guiding principles that were discovered and selected through the process, including the meetings with the public and other stakeholders, were to have streets for all users, but that prioritize pedestrian comfort and bicycle safety. To have lots of residential options, condos, apartments, townhomes, to create a community where lots of different people could live in many different phases of life. To create public spaces that encourage planned and spontaneous social gatherings, basically the kind of places where people naturally interact and build a sense of civic life and community. We want to capture the value of transit. It's a substantial investment. that will be made to bring front runner commuter rail to Springville, and we want to capture and enhance that value with the surrounding land use. We want to make sure that it's well connected internally and externally. We don't want it to feel like a pod or an enclave. We want it to feel like just a natural extension. Like if we had a patchwork quilt and we had a hole in the middle of it, we wouldn't just put one big piece of fabric in there. We'd continue the same pattern of blocks as in the surrounding quilt, and that's what we intend and hope to do here. We want to capture Springville's value and character visually through the building form and style. Form is kind of the shape and mass of the building and the way it sits on the site, and the style is its architectural expression. Some of the opportunities we see is to expand single-family and multifamily residential housing in the area, to create a mixed-use core that really does respond to market demand and provides a place for all people throughout the Westfields community to have as a village center, to expand multi-use trail connections through and on the perimeter of the planning area, to create public gathering spaces, as I mentioned, to increase transit infrastructure and ridership, including local bus service, and then create a place that really reflects in its physical expression Springville's values, identity, and history. The primary feedback we received from the commission as we discussed this was that the future land use map was too specific, with the specific blocks and streets drawn in with bulb outs and trees, all that kind of looked like a final plan, that it communicated too much specificity and certainty for a plan that actually doesn't regulate those things. And so we went back and worked with a consultant and essentially came up with what we sometimes call a bubble diagram, but a much more diagrammatic expression of what we intend the future land use to be for the area without putting streets or blocks in, just kind of blobs, but blobs that make sense. So this is the new land use map, and it essentially diagrammatically shows that the civic and transit functions are focused around the station, with the most intense uses, or maybe to get away from intense, the highest amount of residential units in the biggest buildings immediately adjacent to this station area, with an opportunity for more dedicated commercial to the east and to the west, with residential at the perimeter scaling down to reflect the character of the adjacent neighborhoods and to be compatible with those in scale where they abut each other. Nothing changed in terms of the overall allocation of land use types or yield, and I'll review that in a later slide. We also had what we saw as a really key piece of public feedback was to mitigate the impact of new transportation infrastructure, primarily a potential overpass at 900 South. While that is not something that is planned for or dictated or really controlled by this plan, the plan does have this paragraph in it that I'll read, and we added this underlined last statement. The plan says coordination with UTA and the Union Pacific Railway is required to implement an at-grade crossing. It should be noted that UTA has preference for an elevated crossing due to front-runner interactions with streets. We added, Springville will work with UTA to minimize the impacts of any future elevated crossing on existing developments. We wanted to just clearly express the intent of the city that we will make sure that we do all we can to minimize and mitigate the impacts of future elevated crossing if it does happen in that area. So the outcomes, I've given you two columns. We talked a little about this in our work study session we did after the initial meeting on this plan. The station area plan yields 1,311 dwelling units. The 2002 Westfields community plan could yield 1,352 units, so essentially the same. The commercial acreage is a lot more in the stationary plan, primarily because we're looking at the areas west and counting areas west of the rail in that commercial. The total acreage is a little more in the stationary plan, again, because we're looking at the east, at the west side of the rail, and then not looking, none of these, on the stationary plan, none of the little planning blocks overlap to the east like they did in the Westfield Community Plan. So very close acreage, very close dwelling units, more commercial acreage yield in the stationary plan, and essentially the same net residential density between the stationary plan and the Westfield's community plan. And then the yield of 9.2 acres of parks in the stationary plan remains the same from the previous draft that you reviewed. So the next steps in this plan, after a recommendation is made to council and they take action to adopt this plan, if they choose to do so, would be to bring forward for consideration zoning to implement this plan. So this plan's the general overall vision and policy, and the zoning establishes the actual rules of development, what your setbacks are, how tall you can be, how many windows you have, and what type of materials can work, all those things down to what type of open spaces and how the streets work and interact, and all those elements are captured in the zoning. Along with the zoning, we anticipate developing design guidelines, which are actual architectural standards for the area, to make sure that we really do communicate Springville character in the built result. Likely, and this depends on the form of the zoning that is proposed, a regulating plan, which is essentially a pre-subdivision plan that says this is where the roads are going to go and where the different types of development comes in for approval through the legislative process. That's adopted essentially after the code, but as a way to implement the code. And after that point, it all becomes administrative or staff level review with the subdivision. So they essentially bring in a subdivision plat, staff reviews it and says, are all your utilities in the right place? Are your roads the right slope? And do you meet all the lot and other standards that are established in the zoning? And if so, then we approve a subdivision. Once that subdivision is approved and they've put in the improvements, built the roads and put in the utilities, then we would be ready to accept permits for buildings on that site. The primary property owner in the south, property reserve or suburban or land reserve, as they've branded themselves, continues to advance their zoning efforts with Design Workshop. They sent me a new draft of that earlier this week. So hopefully, if this plan moves forward, we'll be able to take the next steps into zoning pretty immediately after the adoption of this plan, so we can keep the momentum and keep the familiarity with the plan, so that we can remember what the vision was as we go and dive into the specific rules. So those are the next steps that could happen after a recommendation is made to the City Council and City Council takes action. Just to recap your previous Planning Commission meeting, you did open and hold a public hearing in that meeting. You're welcome to either reopen that public hearing or just take public comment in whatever form you would like, and I know you expressed your willingness to do that last time. If there are not any additional questions for me, that's my presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Oh, do we know when this will be on the city council?
No. If we were to have a recommendation tonight, it would likely be the next available agenda would be March 3rd.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Rios. Appreciate all of your effort in going back and and looking at those things and making those changes in the plan. I'm wanting to reopen the public hearing, if that's meaningful with the rest of the committee. Okay. So we'll reopen our public hearing from previously. And so if you have comments, please come to the front, state your name, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And also, if that comment's already been made, to try not to repeat too many of them.
And one clarification too with public comments, it's not meant to be a dialogue with the commission. It is a
Yes.
public comment to us rather than back and forth.
Hi, my name is Bill Forbes. Go back to the public hearings where we expressed all of the concerns that we have. You've heard them, I don't need to repeat them. But two things that I would like to just mention. One is that there is a sentence on the board out of everything that we've brought forth to you. Josh has brought one sentence that basically says there's probably nothing we can do about the overpass, but we'll try. Okay? Which does not give us any hope, any idea what trying is going to be at all. It does not include moving 900 as a through street, trying to move that bridge someplace else other than immediately behind the homes that exist there. So nothing from our perspective has improved at all. The second thing is one of the big concerns that we have in the neighborhood is the water table. And there's been no mention at all as to when a study or what kind of a study or what would be done due to that water table. It concerns us that all of this weight is going to go on that property, and what's going to happen to the water table, and where's that water going to go? And there's been no talk about engineering anything in that regard. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shari Dickinson. I had questions, but I guess I'll just leave it to comments. My biggest comment is about the noise of the trains, and I live just one house from the train. So my comment is my question would be, how do we get people that are living on both the west and the east side of the train tracks over to the train station without building another overpass? Because I was told at other meetings that the current overpass is going to make it so the train doesn't have to honk right there anymore, even though we have the crossing arms. And if we make another street that goes east and west to get the commuters over to the train station, and we're just putting the arms down again, we would have the same problem of the train honking at the arms. It's very, very noisy where I live, with the trains constantly honking. And so I wouldn't mind another overpass, because that's what I've been told, that then the train doesn't have to honk if you have an overpass there. And then my other concern is, and question was, when does the building start, and what are they going to build first? Are they going to start with the train station? Are they going to start with the homes? And I haven't really heard any kind of conclusion about timing for all of this and what we can expect. I mean, it looks like they're planning on planting in the spring because they made all the furrows and everything, but I was just wondering at some point if we can find out what the timing of the start of all the building would be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. My name is Natalie Marvin. I live over by Springville Art Museum. I just wanted to say I'm very excited for Frontrunner Station. I've lived in Springville all my life, and I used to take Frontrunner multiple times a week up to my sister's house or to help my mom at her art shows. And it would have meant freedom to me back then, and it makes me just as excited now, even though my commute is luckily not to Salt Lake County. And I think it's really smart to keep our congestion low and everything. I'm not an expert on transportation, and I kind of just know the bare bones of this plan. But I do regularly commute by bike, and it seems that multiple types of safe pedestrian crossings from east to west Springville are needed whether or not the Frontrunner Station exists. So while I sympathize with anyone who's losing their view or having a hard time with the overpass, I feel that a pedestrian overpass is preferable to lanes and lanes of traffic and congestion. And I just want to say that I feel like it makes sense to have the crossing as close to the station as possible if we want to sustain that area of Springville as a walkable and economical center. And yeah, thank you to all of you guys who are making this happen.
Thank you.
I know you guys were waiting for me. My name is Jeanette McElroy. I live at 1728 West, 920 South, and our homes do matter. We were told by our planning commissioner after the work meeting that our 12 homes, in the grand scheme of 36,000 homes of Springville, did not matter. So you can imagine how not 12, there's actually 15 homeowners feel being told this by our planning commissioner, that our homes don't matter when we're considering 36,000 other homes. I am going to go over a little bit what I've talked about before, because if there is further litigation, I want it on record that the Planning Commission and the city knows what we're dealing with in the Westfields. Camelot Village in the Westfields has endured flooding for years. In my opinion, our builder, Wayne Ross, and the city allowed building and the building of basements in the area. This was a mistake based upon the fact that everyone, except some of us that obviously decided to move there, knew that this was swamp. They knew there were springs. They knew there were aquifers. Years ago, a private home on my street started to sink. It sank because of the water table. Not just in 2023 when we had the rains, this was some time ago. That home had to be stabilized. They had to drill almost 85 feet to hit bedrock before that house could be stabilized. To the west of us, a 3-unit townhome, again, was sinking. 3 families were involved. Again, it had to be stabilized. They had to go almost 85 feet again to ensure the safety of the families that lived in those townhomes. The Westfields have an issue. This water isn't something that we can put off, or we can say you need to do your due diligence before you buy there or whatever. No. The city allowed Wayne Ross to build there and build basements. The problem is no one is liable. We have 20 plus homes in our area, in the Camelot area, who've experienced water or flooding of their basements. The developer flew the coop. The city allowed the homes to be built there, of course, knowing. Anyone that's grown up in Springville, I've been told, knows that this is swamp area. The city allowed this. The residents are responsible for these repairs. No insurance, No help from the city. Nothing. These poor families had to put second loans on their homes just to be able to live in their homes. Now the city wants to build 1,311 units, a nice big bridge, and retail establishments in this very area. If we put 2 people per each unit, we're looking at 2,622 people. If we put 3 people in each of the new units, we're looking at 3,933, almost 4,000 people in that, 56-acre area that's already crowded and crazy. So my question I'm just going to throw out because you can't answer, does the LDS Church know of the water issues? When the LDS Church develops this property, are they obligated to warn future buyers of the possible issues? Will the city okay all of this building knowing of the water issues that exist? Will they, or is there any law that the city has to allow or tell potential buyers in this area that there are water issues, that their homes could sink? Their homes could sink. That's what we're looking at in an earthquake. We're looking at liquefaction. And saying for us to have to do our due diligence doesn't work for me. Who in the world would buy into a new project and say, oh, how's your water table? You know, we need to know how the water table is. Nobody asks that. That's something the city, that's something the developer needs to know, and they need to take care of. The city knows about these water issues. In your questioning of Mr. Yost in one of the meetings, it was asked, can an underground west to east road be put there? And he said no. Why? He said, because of the issues that were talked about today. Well, those issues were the water issues in the Westfields. It shouldn't be allowed. As a resident that loves the city, I'm asking, please reduce the number of residences to a reasonable number. Move the 900 West Bridge closer to the station so people can access it, and it's not right behind existing homes that can possibly, as they're building and digging and doing whatever, those aquifers are like bubbles underneath the surface, and they go just about where they want. We have a home on Britannia. I'll hurry. 24/7, 7 days a week. These people have a hose coming out of their basement that goes into the street. Take a look. Go on Britannia Avenue and take a look. You'll see that in order to keep their house from going in, down in or whatever, they have to have this hose that takes the water out. All I'm asking, is the revenue to the city really worth harming its current and potential residents? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Juan Garrido. I live on 642 West, 650 South in Springville. I was a city employee for 13 years, and I used to run the sewer department and stormwater department, so I'm pretty familiar with with water issues in that neighborhood. In the neighborhood that I live, there is also high water table, and my home is built on a slab on grade, and I know of the other places that had the issues with high water table. Better engineering has accomplished the houses to be stable, to not sink, to not settle. I lived in my house for 13 years and it doesn't have a single crack. So I think we've learned the lesson as in the engineering and planning and zoning of what to build and where. I'm very excited to have this development come in where we can put the people closer to to the big roads that we can get them in and out of the city. It doesn't make sense to do something like this far away, isolated from utilities, from roads, and I think this is I'm looking forward to having a place that I can walk to, meet other people. When we have bigger homes, sometimes we don't even know our neighbors. You know, where we walk around in this place, it kind of forces you. I'm kind of used to that walking around, seeing people that I can recognize and hang out and make friendships, and looking forward for the track station to be able to. My kids come from Salt Lake all the time. I have to go pick them up in Provo right now, but this will be very, very, very handy to have. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Kurt Boucher. I live at 433 North, 700 West. I would like to thank the city and all the planning that's gone into this, because I would love to live right there next to the station. And there are a lot of people like me in Springville City who are looking forward to the chance to have a home within walking distance of good public transportation, within walking distance of shopping and dining. Springville has been my home for the last 18 years. I love it here. When my kids move out, they're teenagers now, I don't need our 3-bedroom house. A plan like this will offer us the opportunity to right size our living arrangements, to not have to have a car, and all the money that I can save on gas and insurance I can spend at local dining establishments, which sounds great. I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to buy the first one available that comes up here, and my single family home will be available for anybody who wants to move to Springville but doesn't want to live in a slightly denser area like this. So I'm looking forward for the opportunity that there is more variety of housing available in Springville for people who are looking for more variety of housing, that is opening us up to increased public transportation availability, increased walking and biking availability. This is what Springville is missing, and I'm grateful for the city that they have put this plan together to offer this missing piece to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Teresa Valdez. I live on the same street as my neighbors here, Renaissance. Our backyard is being impacted way more than the neighborly thing that has been described. For example, S2 is commercial. We don't want tall commercial buildings in our backyard. We don't want a street right across the fence from my backyard and all these people's backyards. I won't see the overpass, but my other neighbors that have spoken will, and they'll look right down their yards. If you could modify this by moving that street closer to DI, away from the homes, that would be a great improvement. And if you could please consider S2 and S4 to be lower impact homes, like maybe even single family homes, to kind of gradually build it up to the higher density homes there. I would also encourage you to consider more parks in that area. And just remove that road that goes right in the back of Renaissance Way, my backyard and all of my neighbors' backyards, up a little bit, and just make it a little more gradual development, less people. The UTA does not require you to have a high density of people there. So, and one very basic question, do you even own it? Is the church willing to sell it to you? And how can you make all these plans when it's not your property? Does the church take on your plans, or how does that work? Anyway, I can see some value in a lot of these things that you're doing, and I appreciate the planning, but I would ask for much less density next to Renaissance Way and that area there, and any other area that might be impacted in the other neighborhoods. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Duncan. I live on the northeast side of town, so I'm not really affected by the water, thankfully. But I do work outside of the city. I wish I was able to work in the city, because that would be quicker, but having the transit in Springville would be nice for me to be able to get to work without having to rely on a vehicle. Currently I do carpooling or busing, and that works pretty well, but having the front runner here would be pretty nice. Because I see all the people coming into town, and I see a lot of buildings, and with more people tends to be more cars. And if I do like the hometown feel of Springville, and I don't think that bajillions of cars is a hometown feel. And so the idea of having transit and more walkability be a focus is important to me, because I think that helps keep the hometown feel of Springville a little bit better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Emily Bastian. I live up on the east side, up 400 South, and I grew up in Mapleton. I was living in Spanish Fork, and living next to developing farmland is what brought us back to Springville. So I sympathize for the neighbors that this is impacting. Being next to open farmland is beautiful. Everyone wants to live in Utah, so development is happening. I do love that Springville is not as congested as Spanish Fork, which is why we're here. And I think having more road driving and other options going west to east will help alleviate the congestion that's on 400 South, and having safer roads and more options for biking. That was another thing that brought me to Springville. Was I now have connecting sidewalks that get me lots of places where that was not the case at my old home. So I just want to say thank you for the thoughtfulness in planning for safe and variety, both safe roads and a variety of traveling through Springville. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Marvin. I live in 300 East, 700 South, so I ride past these fields all the time. I actually go through to get to work. So I'm super excited about the overpass. It gives me an extra option for when they close down 1600 South. And thank you for bringing up the water table. That's one thing I had no idea about. And thank you for saying that new builds have been better. So I'm super excited about the high density housing. It'll be nice having the front runner come down. Like my wife was saying, we commute up to Salt Lake quite a bit, so it'll be nice having that in that location. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is still Nicole Hill. It hasn't changed. I just wanted to make a few comments. I understand why the diagram was changed, and part of me, deep in my heart, just feels like it was kind of just a little nod to, yeah, you were upset, so we're just going to take some of the detail out. Instead of showing big buildings next to our house, now we just have bubbles. And I'm not 100% comfortable with the change, or that it's a guarantee that it won't be exactly what we saw before. My hope is that it's different. I do love all the green stuff in that area. Since it is field area, I think that is a very good choice of land use, keeping it as natural as possible. I appreciate our neighbors expressing again some of our worries about the overpass, the water tables. My husband and I we try and joke, even though it's not a funny thing. He said, well, maybe we just are going to live at the base of the mountain, but our mountain is going to be an overpass. So if that's the case, I do hope you can push it further back and that you'll add some beauty into it, some character, some trees, something other than a cement structure for us to enjoy. I know that it would help traffic, and I understand that the point of this is to make a more walkable community. My husband and I have lived all over the world. I think Utah is one of the least likely populations to walk anywhere that I've ever lived. I commute up to Salt Lake twice, 2 days a week. And I am not in the HOV lane myself, and all of the lanes that are not HOV are full, whereas the HOV lane is not. So that tells me that not everybody is ready to give up a car. And I think you can see that just as you're driving your car, maybe single, you don't see a lot of people walking in Utah. So I think it's a great idea. Other countries and communities have been successful in that. I just don't know that one little community dream is going to make that much of a difference in traffic. And my last point is, I think this gentleman said that he has worked and seen the underground water problem and that technology has improved for the newer buildings. But our concern is not for the newer buildings alone, it's for ours. Ours were not built to the higher standards or whatever magic that they do now. So I think that our buildings that are there, that we've loved, that we put a lot of time and money into, also need to be considered, not just the new builds with their guarantee that things will be better for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment. So because I'm in the Camelot subdivision, and like I said, I'm just one house away from the train. Well, if you have trains going from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., that adds 18 more trains that go past my house. I work from home. My window is facing the train tracks. It gets very, very noisy with the trains that are already there. But thinking of having 18 more trains coming past every day is just like crazy. I don't know if I can even stay there because it's so noisy, and the train's honking and all of the noise. So that was just my other comment.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Hill. We live right where the overpass will go over the tracks. If you can push it back, that would be nice, so it's not right in our backyard. I can see the use of it. Can I go to the map? So the other day, when I drove down to go to work, here's where the traffic stopped for this light way up here. And it took me about 6 lights to finally get it to make the left-hand turn. So we're going to bring an overpass here. And how many lights is it going to take to get, like, if they're coming this way, to get up here? And you all know about, I think this is 400 South, right?
Mm-hmm.
You all know about 400 South. And this is
got this place coming over here, this new overpass, it's a freeway overpass, but it can't go south really from there. So, my questions are you really sure that this is gonna help traffic? Think about that. Think about your own commutes. The water table, yes, concerned about that. And those are kind of my concerns. That's all.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I move we close the public hearing.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion, questions?
I've got a few points, but more just kind of, I wrote down some of the concerns and different things that hopefully through discussion between us as a commission, we can hopefully address some of it. I did want to say, it's interesting that we talked about the transportation impact fee analysis tonight while we're talking about this as well. Knowing and seeing how the city analyzes traffic based on use, and commercial impact is much heavier than residential impacts, and so especially looking at the charts that are included in the packet tonight that anyone should have access to, I'm sorry if this is insensitive, but I don't think that this plan is necessarily changing what is currently zoned, and that's the hard part about this conversation is especially some of the comments that have mentioned about the density right near the Camelot development. Like, that is all technically right now highway commercial, and they could build really high right next to you.
Josh, can we put what the current plan is up?
What do you mean by current plan?
The current land use?
Zoning?
Yes. Like you showed it at the beginning of your presentation.
Oh, that was the
Westfield's community plan.
Okay.
I can.
And this may be a point, because there's the community plan, which shows what this is showing in terms of intent, which is very different from the next steps, which are zoning and setting rules and guidelines to what this intent is then saying. So the Westfield's overlay that Josh showed was the intent from 2002.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And the zoning that's in the city code right now is based on the Westfield's plan, right?
Right. So land use, the land use plan for this shows the zoning, right? Or that's the overlay and.
So land uses, we're up here, we're saying, what is the vision for this area? Is it commercial, is it residential, is it mixed use, is it a transit station? And then the zoning is below that.
There's something in place right now.
Yes, we have three things. We have a general plan that has a future land use map in it. We have the Westfield's community plan, which has some more detailed maps in it, and then we also have current zoning on the ground. And as Hunter mentioned, the entire area to the north of Camelot up until you get to the Desert Industries.
Do we not have that we could put up?
Yeah, I can put that up. And that's all zoned highway commercial for 75
Yeah,
foot.
just to show what it is right now.
And I guess just finishing my point as he pulls it up. No, you're good. And I think what Josh is iterating when he's talking about these numbers with commercial versus residential and what the yield is currently the city has in motion or in place a position on development with its current zoning practices. And zoning, city doesn't practice zoning practices. With its current position with its zoning, and what this plan is really doing is trying to back this up behind the intent of the front runner that is coming and has been planned to come. And we are trying to be proactive about it rather than reactive to it. I guess that would be one point. And while he's finishing, pull that up. And some of the other concerns, I know Josh mentioned that Land Reserve, which is the Church of Jesus Christ land ownership and development company, is in talks with land use planners and designers to work on their land with their development. So they are planning on doing something with it, and that is independent from city practices, though they do have to review things with the city, and that is all developer scheduled and not city scheduled. And developers are required to do due diligence on water tables, soils conditions, economic and environmental impact reports. That is, and I've worked in development, very, very normal practice before I even purchase a property. I am doing that due diligence before I get in business, that area. And as Josh points this out, so all the red right there, that's north of the Camelot development, that is highway commercial. It can go up to 30 stories, or not 30 stories,
75 feet.
75 feet. We're throwing big numbers out, but, and that's it currently. And so I think there is an effort to buffer and, like Josh said, fan out to match existing development while also addressing development that is coming. So, those are kind of my thoughts in trying to address some things.
So that red that's there just above Camelot, the revised land use designations would then add in the residential and reduce the amount of highway commercial that is just north of that, of 900 South. And then you'll see the red that's above the yellow. There's already that commercial there, and the yellow is residential. I'm not sure what density that is. Is it R1?
It's actually the red, the pink.
Oh, it's pink.
The magenta.
Don't ask me about colors.
Village Center.
Is it Village Center?
That's the Village Center zone, and then those are diminishing residential zones.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving south.
So it's the village commercial and then residential, and they're kind of like what Hunter was saying. The idea and intent is to be proactive, because the UTA frontrunner station is not. We're not deciding on that, or not now. That's already been decided, and we're trying to make sure that when it comes in, we're not quickly trying to figure out what to do, but instead help plan for the hopeful walkability.
Yeah, there's lots of layers to
and
the cake.
Things. Yeah.
It's like right now we're talking like intent. And so we're basically building the mass. I'm talking about cakes, but like the mass of the cake of what is inside to create the shape and what the intent of everything is. But then, as Josh pointed out, the next level is zoning. And then after that is regulating plan, which is really getting down into the nitty gritty of you are required to put streets here, parks here. You have to have this many parking stalls, all of that. And that we're not at that point yet.
No.
Not even close.
How do we address liability concerns with existing homes that are already there and settling, and if you go drilling and making a big overpass, how do you know you're not going to affect homes that are already there that maybe hadn't planned for such, aggressive construction? I just don't know.
Josh?
Yeah.
I mean, the first answer is we're not building an overpass. But all whatever entity will be building the overpass, UTA and its construction team, just as with any other large public project like that, they would be required both in the environmental phase right now, which they're going through, to evaluating the potential impacts. So they'll study all of, across the board, any impacts from sound, vibration, geotechnical, water, soils type of things, and then they're required to make a plan to mitigate those through the process established in the National Environmental Policy Act. And this project, because it will receive federal funding, is going through that environmental review process. And in terms of how it works when it's actually on the ground and they're back there driving piles, I don't build bridges, but I know and expect there to be the same level of diligence that of that project as there has been on 1600 South and as we do on any public project. In terms of the general concerns about soils and water and those type of things, just any new subdivision of land in Springville is required to undertake a geotechnical study and report, and that tells us from a professional engineer that's trained in this, that actually puts their stamp and their liability on it, what measures need to be taken in order to safely construct in this area without any adverse impacts on surrounding properties, and making sure that the new homes are built correctly. We rely on the expertise of those engineers in those geotechnical reports, and our role is then to ensure that the processes, the procedures, the strategies, the construction methods that are outlined in those reports and any mitigation measures, other things, our job is to make sure those are completed, those are done. But we don't do the actual scientific work. We rely on specialists for that, and all of that is and will be required for any construction in this area. And for any larger buildings, there will be additional geotechnical work done at the time the actual building permit is submitted or applied for. So we'll have an initial geotechnical report about the subdivision, and Land Reserve has already done a lot of extensive and geotechnical studies in the area. But we'll have an initial report with the subdivision, and then we'll have additional reports for commercial or larger multifamily buildings specific to those building permits that will tell us what in the expertise of a professional engineer is required to meet code for building in those areas.
I think you answered this last time, but I mean, we talked a little bit more about maybe a greater gradient with regards to the density. And I think the issue was, you said that because of that structure, the overpass structure, it's a kind of a break line, and then everything, north of that is more dense, basically. I mean, I was looking at S2 and the things right next.
Talking about on the west side of the tracks.
Yeah, in my mind it's the north side, but yeah.
Well, the north side of 900 South, west of the tracks. Yeah, so S2 is a commercial zone, which would likely, we're not doing zoning right now, but what's recommended in the plan is not a 75-foot tall residential zone. So the residential zone has shorter buildings than, the proposed commercial area there has shorter buildings than what is currently allowed there today. And then on the eastern 2/3 of the property where it is residential, there is less intense residential to the south and then more intense residential up closer to the Desert Industries and Bishop Storehouse properties. So the development density or the residential types immediately to the north of Camelot, there on the north side of Night South, whatever Night South turns out to be are likely single-family attached product, so twin homes, townhomes, potentially small kind of garden apartments, 2 to 3 story maximum
Something
type of development.
and that's not different than what's west of the Camelot single family.
True, or what's different than what's permitted in the Westfields overlay today currently.
Mm-hmm.
All of those product types, if you look on this map, you can identify those within the current Westfields overlay.
Yeah, it's hard for people as people look at the dwelling units per acre that we're throwing out there, like S5 and through S7 and 4 and all those, that dwelling unit at 10 units to an acre, what does that even look like? As a reference, 8 units to the acre is Brookside over by Jake's. I like my neighborhood. So a little bit more dense than that, you're 10 units to the acre. So there's, and there's still family homes. I have 5 kids. So it's not necessarily changing what I think people may say is like we're a family city or things like that. I think there's different stages of life that probably just are being addressed, like what one of the comments make. I think it addresses more of housing variety and a stage of life perspective rather than my kids need a half acre type of thing. I couldn't get my kids to mow the lawn if my yard was that big.
So, in understanding this correctly, the overpass, if it is to be built, would be a UTA project?
It would only happen as part of the Frontrunner project.
Okay.
It's part of their planning, part of their engineering, and part of their environmental review process.
Okay.
Again, the city's preference would have been to have an at-grade crossing at that location.
Gotcha. And so that's kind of similar to with Main Street, how it is UDOT controlled, and like how they talked about another crossing.
Oh, yeah.
We can try and influence them, but it's ultimately their decision. And so that this additional sentence is us saying we will try to do what we can to minimize the impact. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, it's obviously our city, and we could say we don't want an overpass, but if we say we don't want an overpass, we're not going to have a connection. It's become completely clear that there is no alternative to a grade separated crossing there. Again, there may be opportunities to move it north and south, but there are a lot of constraints, so I don't want to give the impression that there's a lot that can be done. But I think as one of the citizens mentioned, there's a lot that can be done in terms of design, landscaping. Is it going to be a gray concrete monolith, or is it going to be somehow softened in some way? I think there's a lot of things outside of the physical location of it that we can do to mitigate the impact on those adjacent homes. But yes, that statement is to say we will do all we can because it's in our interest. We're not interested in putting a giant overpass in anyone's backyard. It's not what we want to do. It's a balance between needing that connection and the impact it has.
Thank you.
Joshua, do you know anything about the noise abatement that Sherry mentioned with regards to if they do put in an overpass, will it reduce?
It actually doesn't matter. UTA pursues what's called quiet zones in all of their Frontrunner projects. So that is just essentially an enhanced, whether it's an at-grade crossing or an overpass, those crossings meet the criteria for the Federal Rail Administration's quiet zones. So from Provo to Pleasant View, none of the crossings with that front runner goes through are required to sound their horn. They can. It's always their discretion, but right now along, at 10th North, at 4th North, here on 4th West, on the 2 rail lines, they are required by federal law to sound their horn. But in the case of the new, the front runner will upgrade all those crossings, so neither the freight trains or the commuter trains will be required to sound their horn.
Oh.
Overpass and no overpass.
Got it.
And again, those are all things that are considered through the environmental process, the train noise, the vibration, all those things.
Anything else?
Any other discussion?
Josh, I wanted to say thanks for addressing things. While it may not seem so, I actually feel like our comments were addressed in terms of how this bubble diagram was moved forward. I think while it doesn't address the specifics that we've talked about tonight, I think it doesn't establish at least an intent of what could potentially be zoning, and that's just going to be it's probably going to be a loaded conversation when we get to that point.
Yeah, I do want to clarify that as the one citizen mentioned, the change in the diagram did not change anything in the plan.
Yeah.
Just to be clear that it just changed the visual and graphic presentation of the diagram. The assignment of land uses, densities, or areas didn't change. We just have a diagram that looks less specific so that it's more clear that those lines will actually be formally established in zoning, not by this plan, that this plan is a recommendation,
Yeah.
not a regulatory document.
Well, I mean, I'm comfortable moving forward, but we'll see how the vote goes, I guess. I mean, I recommend that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of the station area plan as presented.
You have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. And then I think we should do a roll call vote. And who can start?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm a no on this one.
And I am a yes. So we will be recommending that the city council adopt this plan. All right. And then this will go to the city council March
3rd.
3rd,
you said?
was
Yeah.
that?
That's the first day that
Oh.
it could.
Yeah.
Uh,
We don't know their scheduling, but.
we
if it would,
will
then-
we will likely schedule a work session presentation on this, not a public comment type of meeting, but just a discussion with the city council before we bring it to them for adoption in a regular meeting.
Okay.
That may happen the same week, but not likely. But watch for that on the city council agendas. Carla will send out emails as she has with these meetings. But for anyone that wants to, you can subscribe at the state noticing website and just get an email every time a planning commission or a city council or landmarks or community board or
With their
whatever
agendas.
Yeah, you can subscribe to all those agendas, and so you'll just it'll, for the work session, it'll be a presentation or discussion on the station area plan, and on the regular meeting, it'll be consider an ordinance adopting the Springville station area plan.
Great. I want to thank everyone for coming out and your comments and sharing those. It's an important part of helping us and the city and the functioning of the city. And I encourage you to come to the city council meeting, the work session, and those kinds of things as well. Do we have anything?
I would just add, tell your friends. That getting involved and being part of this community is so critical. Whether, however your feelings are about all these things, it's difficult. And without participation, how can we make decisions? So I appreciate everyone who spoke tonight, and I wrote down everything everybody said. And yeah, it's not easy, this growth thing and making everything work perfectly. So appreciate the comments.
Thank you, staff. Appreciate all of the work that you put into this and taking it back and addressing the concerns and those things from before. Do we have anything else administrative or? No? All right. Then entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.